Hi friends, welcome back to the Happy Homestead. I'm Amanda and we are in the summer kitchen. I say the summer kitchen because we're in still summer, I think. I thought summer might have been over, but nope, we're still here. And there is a lot going on and the garden is coming in hot. It's coming in hot. I'm going to show you everything that I even just harvested today and what we've got going on for the Every Bit Counts challenge. So today, Tuesday, August 29th. So I went to the garden this morning, the homestead garden, and I just want you to see, oh my goodness. A lot. Again, I picked a lot of the tomatoes, the bigger tomatoes, green. And that is because I'm starting to have a little bit of a worm problem, like those little army caterpillars. And so if I can get them before they do, then they won't bore their holes and they can just ripen here in the kitchen. The peppers, these are the Ajvarsky peppers from Baker Creek. These are the same peppers that I actually chopped up and put in the freezer for this past weekend's challenge project. I have a zucchini plant that is still going strong. So we got a couple of zucchini. I've got one little lone yellow squash, a lot of cucumbers, a gorgeous delicata, acorn, and then our first two sugar pumpkins. One is clearly bigger than the other. This one got caught. There's some funky lines in it. It actually got caught in the trellising. I caught it, I kind of found it and was able to rectify it and fix it before it got bigger, but it still does have those lines. So those are just going to cure in the pantry. I also harvested a lot of lemon balm. So I've already washed it, destemmed most of it here. And I am going to get this in the freezer because this eventually will be freeze dried. I'm actually considering freeze drying some cucumber too, especially some of these kind of like big overgrown ones. I can cut them open, de-seed them, and then chop them up. And so I got this idea possibly from one of you. I can't remember, but someone told me that they were freeze drying cucumber. And I thought, well, that's interesting. What are you going to do with it? And you said that you were going to use it in the winter for like a tzatziki sauce or maybe a tabbouleh, right? So if you dice it and you can rehydrate it in different ways, whether it be water or like an olive oil or a vinegar, and use it that way. So I am going to try that. If I get the energy today, I'm going to start the freeze dryer with these 2 trays of lemon balm, as well as maybe 2 trays of cucumber, because I have just as much cucumber that you see here, which by the way is a lot. I have the same amount in the refrigerator just from the last week's harvests. And I think I am done with the pickles. I know I said maybe I wasn't, but I think I'm done with the pickles. So I am going to dice some cucumber and put it on trays, and I think I'm gonna slice some because we really like to eat a cucumber salad, kind of like with an Asian flair. So I'll do chopped garlic, chopped ginger, sliced red onion, maybe a little bit of rice wine. My brain is fried. Rice wine vinegar, a little bit of toasted sesame oil, maybe some toasted sesame seeds, and kind of mix all that up. Maybe sometimes add a little homegrown mint. And it's delicious. It's a really delicious side dish. It's the taste of summer and it's crunchy and crispy and full of flavor. So I might slice some cucumbers to try to attempt to make that this winter as I rehydrate them. So lots to do. Also, last night around, I guess 9 o'clock at night, I decided to pull out my Mac Daddy electric tomato strainer, and I was able to process 9 gallons of frozen tomatoes through my electric mill. It basically pulverizes everything and parses out the seeds and the skin and the cores and anything that is not the meat and the pulp of the tomato. And I got 4 gallons of basically really kind of soupy tomato soup. And so I have that on the stove. It's been on the stove, I would say probably 18 to 20 hours. Now it hasn't been heating that long because I turned the burner off before I go to bed, but it's been reduced by about half at this point. I'm gonna get some onions sliced and saute them in some olive oil, maybe. Either that or roasting them. And then I'm gonna get some garlic cloves and roast that because I'm going to make this into a roasted garlic marinara. I'm gonna add some basil and some fresh herbs from the garden or some freeze-dried herbs from the garden and really try to get a good thick marinara as much as I can. I'm hoping to can that up tonight. I will pressure can that tonight. I'm hoping to do so. Before I continue, I want to address some questions because last time when I did a much smaller batch of tomatoes, a lot of you were asking why not use a crock pot or why not use an electric roaster? Both excellent questions and excellent options. I don't have a roaster. We did have one and I tried this. I tried basically doing the tomatoes in it and I can tell you I was a novice. I didn't know what I was doing and I broke my roaster. So don't do what I did. I put my frozen tomatoes in the roaster, turned it on high, and the whole thing short-circuited because you've got this big frozen mass, right? And so the metal bin that it's sitting in is cold, ice cold, and then you've got this heat conduction underneath trying to warm it up, and the two just weren't going together. And so the whole thing short-circuited and broke. I did not buy a new one because at that time I didn't realize what I had done wrong and I just didn't want to buy another one and store it because they are so big. Someday I may consider getting another electric roaster, in which case I would do everything I did last night where I thawed the tomatoes, actually took the tomatoes out Sunday night and had them thaw for a full 24 hours before I milled them. And then I would have taken that milled sauce last night and put it in the roaster. That is something I probably may consider doing in the future. Now, crock pot, also fantastic option if you have one. I do have one, but it's really small. So I'm using my 8-gallon cheese pot. And we've got about 2 gallons of sauce in there. It's on a very low boil, kind of a high simmer, and it's been going for about 2 hours now. I had it going this morning, then I turned it off, and it's going again. So I'm hoping to can that tonight. So it has reduced, you can kind of see the original line maybe on the pot. It has gone down by probably half. So I'm just gonna try to let this go as long as I can and try to get that thickness that I'm looking for. But in the meantime, I'm gonna get some onions roasted as well as some garlic. So when you're roasting garlic, you really want to get tight heads that you can just kind of cut the top off, and then you're going to drizzle it with a little olive oil. And then when it's roasted, you'll be able to actually squeeze out the roasted garlic. I have hard neck here, so it's a little harder to cut through that middle stalk. So soft knife would probably work a lot better, but if you have a sharp enough knife, you can make it work. I've got my oven heating up to 400 degrees. I'm just gonna sprinkle this little olive oil. I only have one really large onion chopped. I also have some freeze-dried shallots that I grew over the spring, and so I may add them as well, but they won't need to be roasted. So just getting some olive oil on the top of those garlic heads. And they're gonna go in the oven for probably about 30 minutes. No time like the present, so I just started the freeze dryer so it could start cooling down. And I picked out all of the kind of large, overgrown cucumbers that I won't use for dinner or slicing for snacking and so forth. So I'm gonna get some of these diced and some of these sliced. I only have 2 trays worth room in the freeze dryer, right? Because I've got 2 trays of my lemon balm that I plan on using. And I use just like a little melon baller. Get some of the seeds out. especially on some of these larger overgrown cucumbers. The seeds can get large also, and then, you know, the texture changes a bit. Not always, but some of the larger ones I like to do that. And for the ones that I have scooped out the seed in that way, I am going to dice those. So we've got one tray of diced done. Now going to work on the last tray for the freeze dryer, and that is going to be the sliced. And if you're not already subscribed, this is a great time to do so, because this winter I pull out everything that we've worked so hard to preserve and put up, and we make some really delicious homemade meals with everything. All right, so the freeze dryer is going. I've got the cucumbers and the lemon balm in there. The onions and garlic have completed roasting for about, I think I did 30 minutes at 400 degrees. They smell so good. Roasted garlic smells amazing. The sauce is still simmering. I think it's getting thicker. I'm checking on it. I'm feeling confident that I can actually start adding the salt and some spices and getting these onions and garlic in. So what I'm gonna do is use my Vitamix blender. I'm gonna throw all of the onions in, squeeze out the roasted garlic, and add just a little bit of sauce to the Vitamix canister to get everything blended up, and then I will dump it in there. So I'm going to add the spices, the seasoning, and that way it can also sit for just a couple of hours and I can taste it. You always want to make sure that you're tasting your marinara before you're canning it so that it actually is something that you enjoy and the flavors come together and meld really well. I'm adding just a little bit of balsamic vinegar, dried oregano. This is homegrown Genovese basil. I freeze dried it. I'm gonna crush it as much as I can here. Redmond real salt. There's no salt in here whatsoever right now. So I'm putting quite a bit, probably about 3 tablespoons. These are homegrown freeze-dried chopped shallots. And I'm gonna do a little bit more garlic powder. We did it! 7 quarts of homegrown, homemade marinara are in the pressure canner. I prefer to pressure can. You don't have to. You could easily add lemon juice, a 5% acidity lemon juice to each jar. And you need to look up, I believe it's 1 tablespoon for pints, 2 tablespoons for quarts. Or you could add citric acid to your pints and quarts. Look up the measurement to make sure you get that correct. If you choose to water bath can. Thank you for joining me today. Stay healthy, stay well, and I'll see you tomorrow.